And Jeannie, we're drawing a blank, coach. Here we go, starting with Vikings Pro Bowl running back Dalvin Cook, who will reportedly not be showing up to training camp or beyond until he receives what he determines to be a reasonable deal. In case you're wondering, Dalvin has 1 year at $1.3 million left on his contract. What do you think, Nick? Could holding out without a reasonable extension, let me rephrase that, holding out without a reasonable extension is blank, the name of the segment.
Terrible advice. Listen, this has Melvin Gordon written all over it, where I think he's getting bad advice from an agent. One of the unfortunate realities of the CBA for players in Dalvin Cook's position is if he does not show up to day one of training camp, his contract tolls, which would mean next offseason he is not an unrestricted free agent. He is a restricted free agent. He loses the year of service time. So the Vikings are in a total power position here. And to me, the only counterpunch Dalvin Cook has isn't really a counterpunch. Show up, be awesome. This offseason, they'll probably franchise tag you because that's life as a running back. And then you can hold out and actually hold their feet to the fire. But there was a report out of Charlotte that he wants, or I'm sorry, out of Minnesota, that he wants Christian McCaffrey money. That is never happening. And if he's going to hold out waiting for that, I think he's going to end up costing himself money, coach. So I think it'd be terrible advice, even if he deserves it.
I don't know how to respond because I am in utter shock that Nick hasn't said he should hold out. He deserves as much money as he possibly can get. This is a travesty. Who are you? Where is Nick Wright? I want him back because I agree with you. This is risky for Dalvin Cook and not just because of the fact that they have the power contractually and you don't get the accredited season, but also when you look at his production, he had 2 years where it was injury prone, and then he comes back and he has the good season this past season. But if you look at the second half of the season, he averaged under 3 yards a carry the last 8 games and through the playoffs. So those numbers aren't as eye-popping as it may look in totality. And they've got another young guy, Alexander Madison, who averages 4.6 yards a carry. But you make this stand when your production hasn't been consistent and they've not got another guy that could potentially do it, and you're creating problems for yourself.
So I went with Jen. I went financial roller coaster, and here's why I think it's tough to beat Dalvin Cook. All right, we don't know how many fans are going to be in the stadium. There's a good chance that Ian Rappaport reported that salary cap might go down by $40 million. So you see NBA players had to take 25% pay cut. Baseball doesn't know what they're doing, trying to prorate stuff or trying to have all sorts of math, which is not getting the season off the ground. So we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the salary cap next year. To come in and say, like, hey, I need an extension. And maybe that's why he's saying it's a reasonable extension. They're trying to put that in. So it's like, we know there's a lot of uncertainty, but I think it's going to be a financial roller coaster if the salary goes down next year and then skyrockets back up in 2022.
Yeah, I agree with all of you, especially you, Nick. We saw what happened with Melvin Gordon last year. All right, last week, Pro Football Focus released their top 50 players headed into the 2020 season. How about this? Among those left off that list, Aaron Rodgers. As they explained, Rodgers has become ever more evidently part of the problem in Green Bay. So, Nick, Rodgers being left off of Pro Football Focus's top 50 players list is blank.
Yeah, so I only looked at the quarterbacks who were on this list because Pro Football Focus has just an absolute love affair with interior offensive and defensive linemen. So you just look at the quarterbacks who were on there. And my answer is this is Brady bias. Tom Brady came in the top 25, and if you read their little recap, it's nothing but excuses for his lack of production. Oh, it was the system and the receivers, and it's not Brady, and we love him so much. And meanwhile, Rodgers part of the problem. But while Rodgers didn't have a receiver like Julian Edelman, Rodgers certainly didn't have a head coach and offensive coordinator combo like Belichick and Josh McDaniels. So if you're going to have Brady in the top 25, not having Rodgers in the top 50 is lunacy. So, Coach, I say it's Brady biased.
Wow, again, I agree with you that you're unhappy with this list. I thought this was a list that was secretly written by you to promote the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. I don't know how you could possibly leave Aaron Rodgers off a list of the top 50 players. It's not the top quarterbacks, whatever your bias is, but to think that he's not part of the top 50 players after going 13-3 and he's got 26 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Look at it statistically. He overcame a young